it's 2 o'clock. Welcome to the Economy and Infrastructure PDC. I'll hand you over now to Sam, and Sam will go through the ritual before the meeting.
Thank you, Chair. Members and officers, just to let you know that this meeting is being recorded. It's being live streamed on the Council's website. Obviously, we're conducting the meeting via MS Teams. Should you have any technical difficulties during this meeting, please could you log off and log back on, and we will obviously give you an opportunity to do so. I'll pass you back to the Chair now for this committee to go through the formal agenda.
Thank you, Sam. First of all, apologies for absence.
Yes, Chair, I have apologies from Councillor Mandy Evans, Chair, and Councillor Miles Lansdowne.
And 2 of them disclosures of personal or prejudicial interest. Nobody? Right, before we go any further, what I've got in the top in the middle of my screen is a picture of Scott Dummett, who is new to the committee from Legal. So welcome, Scott.
Yeah, hi, thank you.
Yeah, item 3 is to approve and sign the minutes of the previous meeting. Pages 1 to 2. So pages 1, 2. Can we move? Move, Chair. Great. Okay. Thank you. Straight to item 4. And this is Martin. Is this you?
Yes, Chair. If you wish, shall I take members through the report that's been presented? Just very briefly, this report sets out an overview of the work programme that was conducted for the 1920 municipal year. Obviously, apologies, been some delay with COVID implications over the last few months, so it's a bit late coming to the committee. But I just tried to set out some of the key aspects of the work programme that the PDC undertook during the last 12 months. And I've set out under the headings there around the River Corridor draft strategy, the work that was done around the transportation strategy, homes as power stations, green infrastructure and Swansea economy. And if I briefly just draw attention to the key points in relation to that. The green infrastructure strategy, which is intended to become supplementary planning guidance in due course. Members' input in terms of shaping that, and input into that was very much welcome, and that is coming to fruition and will be hopefully adopted later this year. The second one, which is around the economy and particularly then the links with tourism, a number of sessions throughout the year, both in terms of officers and Cabinet Member Robert Francis Davis, where quite a great deal of detail was provided to the committee around how the tourism sector impacts particularly on the economy of Swansea. And I think we've seen that given the challenges that took place during COVID and lockdown, how it was obviously apparent that by not having a tourism industry has also significantly impacted, unfortunately, negatively. So officers are looking with members to try and identify areas where we can bring that sector back up to speed as quickly as is possible. And that might be an area where members may wish to look at that during the forthcoming work programme. Third area, which is around the River Corridor strategy, where you would have received some presentations and the opportunity to participate within the consultation. That's been developed. We hope to get it completed by the end of this calendar year, but if not, early into 2021. Then I'll just take you on to 2.4 and 2.5, a couple of specific areas that the committee were interested in looking at, and that was around the economy and the implications of Brexit, and then high street properties, or the high street and the empty properties on high street. And I know officers presented some progress updates as to the sorts of schemes that were helping trying to mitigate that and to bring some of those empty properties back into use. Homes as power stations has been a focus for the committee for quite some time. The final business case is now approaching approval at the joint committee stage, and members have inputted into both the Swansea Council project and other projects that may be taking place in the region, so that we can shape the agenda and shape how the specification for those future projects may look. Probably, Chair, if it's okay, I can pause there because the section 4 give some indication of perhaps areas where the committee may be minded to consider during the coming year. But perhaps I'm happy to take any questions and observations on the document so far before moving on to any potential suggestions in terms of formulating the coming work programme for this current year. Thank you, Chair.
Right, thank you, Martin. Although I did try and stop you twice, but so can I suggest we go back and I just go through the headings, and then if anybody's got anything to say on each one of them, either put your hand up. Well, then we go from there. First is the 2-1, the green infrastructure. Anybody got anything on that? Right. Now, before
Yes, Phil, if I may, very quickly. Martin, could you give us an update, please, on progress in developing the green infrastructure? I appreciate that COVID has no doubt interfered with development and reporting, and I feel I ought to know rather more than perhaps I do about the progress with it. I mean, I know what the strategy is all about. I assume we're talking here about a county-wide strategy, not just a city centre strategy. And I wonder if you could give an update on that, please. And there's also an issue perhaps of whether it should come back to this committee before it goes to council. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Peter. Funny enough, I think you took the words out of my mouth as well. Because it does say public consultation, has it been done? Should that come back to us to have a look at with the strategy, so we could make some comments and maybe alterations to it?
Yeah.
Shall I respond to that, Chair, if I may? My understanding, yes, Peter, absolutely right. The strategy which was approved to go out to public consultation, that public consultation, I believe, is underway. I don't believe it's closed yet. My understanding is that was dealing with the initial phase that was done in partnership with NRW, which was the core city centre. And I think, right, if members recall, it was an intention then, once that had been adopted, to widen the scope into the whole of the city and county of Swansea. But I don't believe that's part of the current proposal. As to the timing, as to bringing that back, the consultation responses back to this committee, I'm more than happy to look at that and see if that fits in with the timescale. Just to clarify, it isn't due to go back to council, it's due to go back to planning committee as it's a devolved matter to them as supplementary planning guidance, as opposed to going on to full council. But if the committee wish, I'm quite happy to investigate those timescales and to see whether we can ensure that a further feedback session to this group can take place before that final report is concluded.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair. Well, June has got a hand up.
Thank you, Chair. I don't know whether this is the right place. I was hoping to get in before you went through them. In the minutes of the last meeting, we looked at Amnesty Waste, and you were going to bring forward a report on the pilot scheme, and that's not included in any of the papers that follow. I know COVID has intervened, and I wondered where we are with it.
Yeah, before Martin is back in, when we go through the work plan, I was going to suggest that the things we haven't finished last year, we put on the work plan in the front load it. Okay, Martin, did that run? Yeah. Yeah, okay, like we're doing, unless it's on the same point.
Yeah, it's about green infrastructure, Chair. Yeah, Martin, under this green infrastructure strategy, is this all the areas of natural green spaces within areas included within the green infrastructure strategy? Because I know that this was an issue that was raised a while ago with the committee to get an actual findings of exactly what how many of these areas are in each ward that we could probably have use of.
Shall I come back on that, Chair? Sorry, if I understand the question correctly, the green infrastructure strategy which will effectively, at the moment, only cover the core city centre, therefore wouldn't cover the wider wards, is quite focused on future projects and how green infrastructure can be incorporated on those future developments. If there's a request from members around the wider open space stroke green space strategy and what elements may be within individual wards, I believe that would be a separate piece of work or a piece of work that would link into the wider city and county. I'm quite happy to consider that, get some detail on that, councillor, and bring it back to a future committee or separately for yourself, with whatever the committee would wish.
Thanks, Chair.
Would that come under what we looked at 1 or 2 years ago with the open space strategy?
I believe so, yes, Chair.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, Chair, that's on the same lines that I was asking about.
Peter?
Well, thank you, Chair. Just quickly on this topic. There's also, of course, the Green Fairness strategy, which is in process of being developed through the Poverty PDC. And clearly that has implications for the green infrastructure strategy. But as Martin has been indicating, that's a wider issue than for the city centre. The Green Fairness strategy is concerned with ensuring adequate provision of green space in the more deprived areas across Swansea, recognising the linkage between green space and health, and also, of course, green space and biodiversity. So I would hope that certainly the second phase of the green infrastructure strategy will take on board the developing work in terms of green fairness. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Peter. June, do you want to come back behind us a minute?
Sorry, Chair, my hand's up for the next one.
Okay. Right. If there's no more questions on 2-1, we'll go to 2-2. June?
Yeah, on this one, when you do the revision of the future work programme, are we going to include the effect of COVID on tourism and businesses in Swansea?
Okay, if I respond, Chair, absolutely. I think quite clearly the committee's remit in relation to the economy, and as we've already indicated, the tourism industry as a critical part of the economy. I think it would be essential that I would recommend to the committee that any review of any of those sectors, particularly tourism, takes into account the impact of COVID and the ongoing impact of COVID and restrictions that are currently in place and may continue to be in place for quite some time.
Okay. Happy now, June?
Well, thanks, there's no more.
Okay. So if I move on to 2-3, any questions on 2-3? Robert?
Before you move on, Chair, I think the effects of COVID on the tourism industry is really well worth looking at. The Swansea Bay Tourist Association are looking to extend the season further into the winter. 40% of the people that come to Swansea as a destination choose it for walking and cycling. But also when people want to come, they need places to stay. With COVID, it's hit the tourism industry badly. Therefore, we might sometimes need to look at how some of the destinations in Gower where the caravan sites might be able to extend greater than there's restrictions on some of them at present. People want to stay quite often through the winter, as well as just what most of us traditionally had looked at the summer holiday season. So it's well worth looking at that, because we need to give the holiday destinations and the tourism industry all the support it can during these difficult times. And who knows, we're far from out of it. I think we're heading for another lockdown probably, and it could peak around about December time, so all the estimates are made. So we really need to look at helping the tourism trade as much as we can.
Yeah, thank you, Robert. we're obviously we're looking at, that's a big piece of work to come our way this year. Right, on to 2-3. Anybody on 2-3? Can I ask Martin then that we had a look at the draft strategy. When the new strategy is close to completion, will that then come to us to see if there's anything else we can recommend to the cabinet member before it gets adopted?
Yes, of course, Chair. More than happy to arrange that.
Thank you very much. 2-4. No, I can't say anything. 2-5.
Sorry, Chair, yes. You're moving faster than I am. Clearly, Brexit is fundamental. When I chaired a working group of scrutiny that looked at the Council's performance on Brexit, and that was very helpful and very informative. I suspect that once we get into the new year, maybe we can come back to this when we look at our forward work plan. But I'm sure we ought to ensure that we have a look at the Brexit implications once we know what they are early in the new year. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Peter. Just something on that note that Peter said. If something like this goes through scrutiny and they've got suggestions, then that report should come to the PDC because we look at policy. And if something could be added to the policy, then we could recommend that to the cabinet member. Yeah.
That's a very, sorry, Charles, you say that's a very good point. I'll look into that because there were various points that emerged out of the working group discussion. I'll chase that with scrutiny and see whether that report can come forward along with our wider consideration, perhaps of Brexit early in the new year.
Martin?
Yeah, but mate, you probably recall we had quite a lengthy discussion on a couple of the agenda items during earlier this year in relation to items that had all going through the scrutiny process, and just to try and make sure we don't end up conflicting the scrutiny aspect and the policy development committee, which has rightly been said is about developing that new policy. I believe when we discussed it previously, the advice that we had legally was clearly if scrutiny have reached their conclusions and the cabinet member then agrees with those conclusions and cabinet therefore support the development of new policy, then that new policy request then gets referred to the PDC. My view is, I can double check, is I don't think the route should be scrutiny to PDC to cabinet. I believe it should be scrutiny to cabinet and then elements of that referred to PDC where there's a policy development aspect. That's my understanding. So it doesn't mean it can't come here, it's just the route in which it takes. That's all I would suggest.
Thanks for that, Martin. So I was on the wrong bus. Robert?
Yeah, I look at scrutiny as being really a critical friend for cabinet, and to look at what we are looking at and to give advice. And some will be accepted, some won't. I see the Policy Development Committee as the relevant body to look at forming policy so that that can come forward as a recommendation so that cabinet can agree it. The only people that make policy is actually council, so we would then refer things to council from the Policy Development Committee if we think that is the road that we want to go down and to put things forward. That's the way I see it. Willing to be corrected.
Yeah, if I could just pick up on that, Chair. I think Robert is absolutely right. And I think the role of this committee, once we know what the implications, economic implications of Brexit might be for Swansea, to ask ourselves as a committee, what can we do here in Swansea in terms of our economy to counter what we anticipate will probably be the negative effects of Brexit?
Thank you. I think just to clarify, what I was trying to say was that if it goes to the cabinet member and then it comes to us, what I didn't want was go to the cabinet member, then it go into cabinet before we have a chance to look at it. That's what I was trying to make myself clear. 2.5. Any questions on that?
Yes, Chair. Can I just, in relation, first, Robert, what's the progress on the old Palace Theatre, Robert? Are you able to give us any further update?
Yes, the Palace Theatre, we are now looking, it's out for tender, and for looking for the expression of interest for those people that want to take it on, the Palace Theatre. So the work is in progress, is very exciting. There is interest out there. We've advertised it for somebody to occupy the building. So.
Yeah, thank you, Robert.
Thanks, Robert.
Martin, might take your hand up.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I was going to suggest if members wish to and were interested in, that is something we could look to the work programme for this year, either in isolation in terms of the Palace Theatre, or we are looking at wider assets along High Street to see how we can use the council's assets to try and make a overall difference to the locality. So if members are interested, we can deal with it either as a Palace Theatre or deal with that perhaps and bring an item back as to a wider High Street master plan, for want of a better terminology.
Yeah, sounds good. Okay, we keep that in mind. 2.6, well, we've spoken about this quite a lot in the past, and very exciting project. Nobody got any questions on it? I suppose we'll have further reports as this goes through, especially on the retrofits, which again is exciting. And that's it. Nothing else for Martin. Can we go on to 4 on the agenda? No, 5 on the agenda, which is the work plan. Can I first of all just put down, I know we're going to work the work plan, but what we had left on well, we just adopted the minutes, the waste, active travel and local toilet strategy, we'll just push them forward now to our next work plan. Yeah?
Yep.
I don't know about putting months to them. No, we'll see how that goes. Can we also, on the work plan that we spoke about, the river corridor, can we just keep that in, just that we don't forget it when the new strategy is due for completion? Okay, Martin, happy with that?
That's all fine.
And the same with the green infrastructure.
Yeah.
Even if you put a long date in it, we know that it's coming back yet. Has anybody else got anything for the work plan? But you can always add to the work plan as we go along with that, as things pop up.
Chair, can I just ask clarity? What's the next for our next meeting? What you wish to look at as the main item for that?
Well, are you happy to look at what we finish on the waste, because that should be ready, because it would be ready for April? What do you think?
Yes, Chairman.
Good idea.
What about the local toilet strategy, Martin? Is that close to completion?
Apologies, Chair, I missed that. What was that one, sorry?
The toilet strategy.
Yes, Chair, that is out to public consultation at the moment. I think we previously discussed about the consultation responses coming back. I believe it will have closed by, whether it's closed in enough time, but I'm quite happy to add that one to the next agenda, and even if it's not closed, I can give you an update on it. In the meantime, if it helps, I can circulate to the committee the link to the current draft strategy that's on the council's website. I'll be happy to pick that up at the next meeting.
That's excellent, Martin. Thank you for that. Jim?
Sorry, is my hand up?
Yes.
I've lowered it.
Hands down now.
Sorry, Chairman.
Okay, thank you. If there's nothing else, like I said, we can always add as we go along when things crop up. And we feel it's important to have a look at it. So that if there's no more questions on that, thank you all for attending. And go enjoy the sun before it disappears.
Will do. Cheers. Thank you, Chair.
Bye.